Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and use the John Sheena here, and I'm just gonna film this in the bathroom. So, the United States is like this vortex. Let me start this way before I start that very fancy soliloquy. A lot of people have finally admitted that the U.S. is no longer a white majority nation because of the recent census, where it's like white people are 60% of the country, something like that. And of course, everyone's like, wait, less white people, this and that. The thing is, it doesn't matter because you could go ahead and say this is that the United States is like a vortex that once you get pulled into this, now there are exceptions, obviously. It makes you forget where you came from. It makes you forget what you once were. This is a country that is built on, greed, obviously. But it's a country that requires you, if you are somebody who values your identity, whether you're Chinese, whether you're, Cherokee, or even if you're European, if we really want to get Wignatish about it, it's a country that makes you say you have to give that up in order to be part of this system. You know, now it's different for Chinese right now, especially obviously we assume West Coast, San Francisco, but obviously there are Chinese Americans that live across the country, right? Plenty of hyphenated Americans who at times are allowed to identify with their home country for whatever reason. But for the most part, they are told you got to at least give lip service to this system. And I think for the vast majority of second or third or fourth generation Americans, this is what happens is that you no longer speak Mandarin, if you're Chinese, or you no longer speak Indian. You don't, or Spanish or whichever, right? And you speak like a white person. You're like, oh, hey, how's it going, buddy? Oh, you said, oh, okay, they no longer represent what they used to. It's much like the same quote. I've said this before, but it's a great quote because it is true. This was a common belief of German soldiers on the Eastern Front. Is that even if they had conquered the Soviet Union, as much of a fluke and a long shot as that would have been, they would have had the parades, the pomp, the flair. But at the end of the column, after all the marches, there would have been one German soldier, tattered uniform, unshaven, and the Germans try to talk to this guy. He's like, "Oh, it's a German soldier. Yeah, you won." And they talk to him, and he only speaks Russian. He has lost whatever connection he has, and I know that comes off as very Whig, very white nationalist, but it serves as a reminder. We've seen, of course, AOC attempt to fight for her position as remaining a congressperson, and she has failed. She has failed. But whatever Puerto Rican bona fides, whatever bona fide she can claim, there are people who will still simp for her and will try to be like, yeah, she's still going to deliver something. She's still going to tax the rich. The smart money has left. The smart money left a long time ago. The fact is that the United States is made up of people who were all part of the lost tribe of Shabazz, at least in some way, And I know people are going to be like, how dare you appropriate that? But I don't really care. But the fact is, though, we have a country that has always been like this, that you have been subserved to this system. And you no longer have any connection to where you came from. Because that's how America screws people up. You could go to other countries and retain, I would argue to a point, you could go to other countries and retain your identity, whether it's national or racial or whichever. But in the United States, if you spend enough time here, you you have to subserve yourself to the system. There are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, there are plenty of exceptions. But for the most part, if you want to get a decent job, if you want to, have a house and all this other stuff, is that you have to give into the system to some degree. And that's the diabolical thing about the United States, is that, they will go on and on about the evil American system, or excuse me, yeah, evil American. That's what I'm saying. They will go on and on about the evil Russia, or the evil Iran, or the evil DPRK, North Korea, or China. Oh, how dare they! But these countries, while you can say that, yeah, they've taken other people, this and that, but it hasn't been as insidious as the United States is. I'm going to use another quote here, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. But I think of Malcolm X, and he says that I have more respect for a man that means what he says and says what he means. South Africa preaches segregation and practices segregation, while America preaches integration and practices segregation. I have more respect for a man for means what he says and says what he means. Instead of somebody that will come out as an angel but is nothing but a devil. And I know every time I say that, I always get a little bit of it wrong, but the idea is there, the essence is there. But anyway, this country gives the idea of being accepted. We accept all people. But the thing is, though, is it uses the power of money. It uses the power of fitting in, peer pressure, arguably, to accept this system, to accept giving yourself up and, realizing that, you sever that connection to the old world. In a lot of ways, that's what the United States is. It severs that connection. And you get so lost in things that you no longer know who you are. And that's why you have folks that try to go off and discover all these things. This is why you have, arguably, white people. I'll dab on white folks because we deserve some dabbing on. You'll have these white folks who try to, I'm a Buddhist, all this sort of thing, right? It's because they're empty. They're empty. They want to reconnect with something and be, and hold on to something. Because this country offers nothing. It offers nothing. There's nothing to grasp onto. It's like a it's like trying to hold on to a bar of soap and you can't dig your, fingers into it. It's like trying to hold on to a bar of soap and you just fall. And you fall into this hole. And there are numerous paths you can go down. And that's what happens. I've said before about being a gun runner, LARPing is that because it's the idea of making money. If you just have enough money, then your life will be great. Or if I just do this, I'm going to be better off. If I just get this certification. They take a little more. They take a little more and take a little more until when you're in your quiet, especially when you're a younger man, younger than me, you realize that you've given so much of yourself that you no longer are who you are. Now, this can happen in other contexts. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to be somewhat good faith here, but the U.S. is great at that. It's about stripping your individuality, not in the sense of like a Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, in the sense that you are part of the Volk, you're a part of the proletariat. No. Is you are a special person, or you're part of America now. I can't really, it's hard to explain into words, but it strips you of it. Now, I've accepted a lot of this, and I've been down the white person path of maybe I should become a Buddhist monk, because that would, I would be in touch with something. White people do this. I do realize that. White folks in particular are the ones who are just like, oh, well, I want to reconnect with something. I'm going to, and not in the Wignash sense, like, I'm going to, connect with Europa. Sorry. That's loud as fucking, sorry. That's kind of the, it's my cue. I should hurry up. But, folks, they want to reconnect to something. And yet it becomes commodified as well. The thing is, this country can lull you into a sense of security, so much so that you don't know what real suffering is. That's the real problem of it, isn't it? That's why people are so upset about January 6th, or because of 9/11, because it makes them realize that it's like, we're not simply an island, or we can live in this world where you're watching your porn or watching your, sports ball or whatever, right? That there are people that disagree with this government. They disagree with what's going on. And it scares them. It's like this country is no different than any other country where terrorist attacks happen or violence occurs. Oh my gosh. And it makes people step out of that bubble. And that's really what it is, in my opinion. It makes people step out of that bubble. Just that bit. Makes them step out of the house and touch grass, if you will, as the saying goes today. And they don't like it. It's basically what January 6th and what 9/11 and all these other aspects, or, realizing that gangs exist or whatever. What it is, in my opinion anyway, it's someone taking their bare foot and putting it on the ground. And they step right in a pile of fire ants. And they get bitten hundreds of times. It doesn't hurt the system. It doesn't, it annoys you more than anything else. You kill the ants, you may spray a pile. Well, the thing is, though, the ants still exist. The ants are, their surviving ants will go off and create another ant hill, But that's what it is, really. And it's like, I got bitten by thousands of ants and it was so awful. We need to get rid of all the ants in the world. And that's really what it is, isn't it? Is because people that are so privileged and feel that this system is so great that even just the mere bite of an ant is enough for these people to be like, oh, it's so awful. Oh, I don't want to go outside. I can't, something that's fairly natural, in my opinion. Ant bites are nothing new, whether it's a big fire ant or whatever. But it doesn't change everything. Anyway, that was my attempt at being philosophical. I hope y'all enjoyed that. And maybe I gave some solace to it, but, here's a real ending. I know I said that, 4 minutes ago, but here's the real ending. The real ending is this. Is the fact is that this country, once it does collapse, is that I don't think that there will be any real big resistance. Is that people are so used to this, whatever this is, the constant, loops of ESPN2 playing somewhere, or, the next Marvel movie or whichever, that if the government collapsed tomorrow, they'd just be like, as long as they can have their food, as long as they can have their Gatorade, then it'll be like nothing happened. They'll be like, oh, the government, the corporations rule us now. Oh, okay. That's the real fear, isn't it? So while I live in the fantasy that, oh yeah, it's going to be great revolution and, for whomever, that revolution may be too late. Anywho, that's all I got to say. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. See you later. Goodbye.